about, obviously you're here because I want to talk about OKRs, and you're probably wondering what that is. If you know, you probably already know how great they are. It was introduced to me this year. I work for Positive Coaching Alliance, and it was introduced from a business perspective, and my brain immediately went into, I'm using this for Ultimate. And over the past, I've been coaching for 10 years. Over the past 10 years, I've definitely always had a culture building practice of setting team norms and expectations for both myself, captains, and people on the team to make sure that we have goals that we can all relate to or expectations we can all abide by. But like learning OKRs was just the biggest eye-opening moment of, wow, I can take all of my ideas, all of these goal sessions that we have, and turn them into better organized, more attainable, easy to use, to create believe in versus buy-in. I think buy-in is like level one. Believe in is something that a good team will make great. And so this year, UW, we started it, and unfortunately our season is cut short. So I wish y'all could see like the progress that we've been making. But our goal this year was just to make it better organized and structured. This is our second year as a coaching trio together. We've either played or coached together in the past, but the three of us together, this is our second year. And going from year one to year two, we were like, okay, there's so many things we want to improve on from year one. How are we going to organize this? There were so many ideas, and I'm sure you as a coach have had that same feeling of after your season, like, wow, I wish I would have done this, or wow, I wish we would have focused on this. And so that's where OKRs came into play. Little background on OKRs, the nerdy side, like Google uses this, Intel, Bono, Microsoft, like it's just big companies use this because it works. It makes you believe in something. It gives you targets that you can reach attainably. So that, like a little background on that and where it started. Kind of how I do it is once you have your team selected with captains and coaches, I kind of put onus on the coaches and captains to come up with big overarching goals of where you want your season to go. And then from there, you're going to build your key results. And I'll back up a little bit after this, but key results are those measurements that you can reach to then attain your goal. So it's kind of key results are those baby steps to then hit your bigger objective, which is the goal. So the way that we did it for Element on UW is we went ahead and had the team they have a team like bonding sleepover weekend every year. We had the team come up with an identity statement or a big giant goal that sometimes feels like, wow, how are we going to get there? But we wanted this goal to be really like set the bar really high, because that's the only way you're going to be able to really achieve something as a team, right? You wanted to push yourselves and coaches to then better your team. So we had the team come up with a team mission or identity statement that had their big goal. Of course, ours was making it to Monday of Nationals. Hopefully it still happens so we can reach it. But that can't be like, so that goal would be set for the end of May, right? So then the rest of your season, you're working to build up to that goal. And the way you do that is by building these pillars. We just chose 3. So these are our 3 objectives. And so for us, I have an example was play our way. And so that's very loose, and also taking it from business to Ultimate, you have to adjust a little bit. But ours was play our way. And so under that, in our key results, were ways that we were going to be able to achieve that goal of things like move the disc by stall 4, create space for each other, have creative throws, know our systems. So things like that people can then attain during practice and we can focus on. So for example, at tournaments, we'll set the tone on game 1 in the morning and say, okay, this game, our goal is going to be move the disc by stall 4, because that's going to help us play our way. And then at halftime, we'll check in and we'll say, hey, how are we feeling about moving the disc by stall 4? I mean, as a coach, you're either going to know if they're doing it or not based on how quickly the disc is moving, but also you're going to start seeing connections happen and creativity happen, because by moving the disc by stall 4, you're going to have to make it happen. So that's just one way that we measured it. So on those 3 pillars, that's kind of your, what's holding the house up, what's holding that mission, that team statement up. And then, eventually, like maybe, hopefully, this doesn't happen, but probably you're going to have one of those pillars kind of start to fall, right? As a team, you're going to go to a tournament and realize that, wow, play our way is not going that well right now. So let's focus on our other 2 goals or objectives. but we have a backbone. And that this year we called it dog pack. And so whenever somebody on the team or like, was missing or hurting or not playing their best, like it was our job as the rest of us to pick them up, right? So as a dog pack, we're the Huskies, so dog pack mentality of being able to lift them up because we know that's going to help us play our way, right? So there's always this thing that you can fall back into when things aren't going your way, that you all believe in, that will help you come out of it, right? So that's kind of the structure. So you have up top, and I drew one out, but I think it's going to be backwards, but I'll send this out maybe to Jude, he can send it out. But so you have the structure, sorry, it's a little windy. So you have your team mission statement up top, your 3 pillars.
Wait, did I just lose you guys?
No, she spoke.
And as long as you can achieve them, why not add them? And at the bottom, yeah.
You froze during
that.
So if you don't mind introducing that again, that'd be great.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for telling me. So this is kind of my sketch. Don't mind my handwriting. I'm an athlete, not a drawer artist. But up top, you have your team mission or identity statement that your team has come up with. And then down below are your objectives. Again, your team has probably, identified these 3 things as something that fits into that identity statement. And then down below is going to be your backbone. So that kind of also, again, another identity statement of, okay, if one of these pillars is falling behind, then what do we need to bring us back? So for us, it was that dog pack mentality of helping each other out. Or, a lot of our players, and this may be true or not for you, but a lot of our players, commute. And a lot of them have family responsibilities. And so if one person misses a practice, it's everybody else's responsibility to check in on them and make sure they're doing all right. Right? So more buy-in, more believe in. And what these OKRs help us do this season, I'm sure you all read Ulti World. If you do, you've seen that people have been giving us a hard time about not living up to our potential. But I think this is something that these OKRs do really well. It's our team identity, it's our team goals, and only we can judge us by that, right? And as far as that goes, we were doing all the little things right because we were able to talk to the team before every tournament of saying, okay, these are our focuses, and this is what success looks like at the end of this tournament. If we can, play our way, if we can, create team success over self success, things like that were measurable. And just really made us feel okay, this is the UW that we know, right? And my goal for the team was to be able to set fair expectations about what us as coaches were looking for to then help us reach our mission or our identity statement for playtime and things like that. So if you, weren't moving the disc by stall 4, or maybe you didn't know our end zone system, we can refer back to this and say, hey, this document, this is our team. So then to fall into that, here's what you need to be doing to then set yourself up for fair expectations around playtime or, what you can be doing to contribute to the team. So that's kind of why we did it and why I think it's really successful is it creates that believe in, it gives you something to fall back to if you need to. And it also just keeps you centered and structured. I know on for my high school team that we didn't get to do this year, because of COVID. Thank you, COVID. I think I would have done this with high schoolers all the way probably even in middle school. I've coached middle school before, and I think it would have been much simpler. But I still think having team goals, no matter what level you're coaching, kids are going to want to achieve those goals. College athletes are going to want to achieve those goals. Business folk are going to want to do it. Coaches are going to be super hyped at the end of a tournament weekend when you can say these goals that we set, this is how we're going to play and this is how we're going to be successful. So that's just a little bit of background on personal anecdotes of how it's worked. I'd love to take questions. I'm sure you're thinking of many questions, hopefully, but I'd love to take them and just, let me know what y'all are thinking. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Spencer, go ahead.
Cool. Kostic, how did you, you kind of briefly touched on the process of making these goals. Mm-hmm. It sounded like it was you and the coaches and the captains. I guess, could you just talk through the process of how you came to these objectives, buy-ins? Was it you all saying these are the objectives, buy-ins? Was the team like sitting down and deciding all of these? How'd you get there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Spencer. It actually came up, the 3 coaches were meeting at, Kelly Hall, Spencer, so you'll love this, but we were meeting at Coyle's, a little cafe in Seattle, and we just had so many ideas, and I was like, look, I have the structure because I just learned it at work. Like, let's put these into work. And what I did was I just took it on myself. I'm one of the assistant coaches, so I have a little bit more freedom in that kind of area. And basically I wrote out what I thought, or we came up with ideas of what our team identity would look like, or our team goals of how we're going to be successful as coaches. And then we just wrote them out right there. And then I prettied it up a little bit later. And then before sending it out to the team, we checked with the captains and said, hey, is this something that you agree with, or are there any things you want to add or change, or you just, is this something you want to use? Because we find it useful as coaches, and like our captains full on were like, this is awesome, this is what we need. So they bought in right away. I can see too, like another side of it is, it could be good to have your captains there, but when we came up with it, it was just us coaches, but we made sure our captains also believed in and bought into it because, they're the ones that the team really believe in. But it took a few drafts, to be honest. It was, and it took the team coming up with their team identity statement, and then we put it all together and then sent it out to the team and said, hey, are y'all okay with this? It was constantly a check-in of like, if you guys don't believe in this, then this document's useless, but we want to make sure that everybody can see this and see why we chose these statements, because, we chose it in mind of who we have on the team and kind of how we had been playing. But yeah, a lot of it was just coach decided, then passed down to the captains who had total veto. Like they could have said nope, or like added or changed anything, and then given to the team. But I think the cool part about it was we didn't decide the team identity statement. That wasn't our, it's our team a little bit because we're coaching it. But at the end of the day, like the players have full power over what their goal is. And they came up with a goal that was, let's play on Monday. And so we saw and we're like, dude, these goals fit in perfectly. And this is how we're going to do it to our best of ability so that we can measure and constantly check back in and see if we're actually doing the things that we know we need to be doing to get to Monday. So yeah, Spencer, just a little bit of coach taking over to then passing down to captains and then having team decision around the identity statement.
I actually have a question. This is sort of a big I'll share your question, Scott, in a second.
Yeah, I just saw it too. Sweet, thank you.
This was a kind of a switch, and you have people that even began their college career under a different coach, coaching team. How quickly did you see buy-in? How did you find that there were people that weren't ready to kind of see a culture shift like this? Or did this just sort of coalesce some stuff that was already happening? Like, how did you get buy-in?
Yeah, I mean, so this is our second year. And I think last year more than this year, there was definitely residual like pain and kind of hurting, and also systems that were built that we needed to break down those walls. So I think last year honestly was the bigger hit on that side of, everybody getting used to us as coaches, but also changing systems, because there was a huge system in place that players felt if they broke it, they would be punished in a way. And one of my biggest things as a coach is you're going to mess up, right? It's inevitable. Like no great player has never messed up. And a lot of these players felt the pressure and negativity towards mistakes. And so we turned it into a positive of, hey, if you're going to mess up big. But if you dwell on it, we actually came up with this game. I didn't come up with it, but we started using this game called Biz Buzz. That's basically, it's a math game where you just have to go around in a circle and, try to get the sequence right. And if you mess up, the next person starts right away, which is something that we've taken into mistakes in games that happen. It's like, if you dwell on it, it's not going to help. So that was honestly the biggest challenge in last year. And this year we still had some players that still lacked in confidence of the new quote unquote system that we have. But again, like I think, and our team is so analytical to the fault. And so having a document like this actually really served our team well, because it gave people structure, and not in the way we were playing per se, like out on the field, but structure and having expectations that they could follow and that we could check in about. So I think like most of that pain happened last year in 2019. And this year it was, the people on the team who were returners, like last year, they were really hurt. And I think this year coming into the season, they were like, okay, finally I understand my role is not just being a rail cutter and that's it. Like they understand that to be a successful team, like they have to flow in and out. And our OKRs played into that. That was one of our key results, was like flexing in and out of the handler and cutter spaces. And yeah, I think overall, Jude, I think I'm rambling a little bit, but yeah, it helps so much just with every type of player, especially us having a ton of analytical, very literal players. But I think, they just totally bought in, and they could see, like, by us doing these tiny key result goals, like they could see the value of this document and the value of our team buying in, because they like could see themselves playing better. They could see their teammates being successful and wanting to cheer them on, instead of being like, oh, I wish I were playing. Right. So it was nice to have something that the whole team really grabbed a hold of and could see that it was working. And I think if it wasn't working, they would see that maybe our key results weren't the right ones. And that's something as a team we were ready for. We thought we had all the right ones, and at some point, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I think they understood too, if it wasn't working, we weren't just going to stay with it. We were going to adjust as needed to.
Sweet. This question is from Scott. It says your team's goal was to make national finals. How do you balance the pressure of doing that versus breaking it down into little process things?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Scott. I think the beauty of OKRs is it takes that huge, kind of, it feels like unattainable goal of making nationals and finals, unattainable only in the sense of like only 2 teams in the country will be in that game. So like that's big. But I think through the process of, and I've seen it through the key results, like those were our process goals. Like those little tiny things we could focus on were in our control. And I know we talk about uncontrollables and controllables all the time. And like right now is the biggest uncontrollable probably we will ever see, of not being able to coach or play. But I think like having those key results were our process goals. Those were the things we could check back in and really control, like moving the disc by stall forward. Like that is 100% in our control, because I know like if we're cutting creatively and we're setting up each other for success, like somebody will be open, right? Or we have enough creativity in our throws that we can throw somebody open. So I think while it does feel kind of like a big, big goal, I think at the end of the day, we were able to not focus on like the Monday of nationals. Like we were able to focus on like our big objectives, our 3 objectives being like what we need to achieve to get us in the best spot to make that final game. And so I think, yeah, in a way it is process goals. It's a lot of checking in and communicating what you're like. We always write down a word for every game at a tournament. We write down like resilience was one of our biggest words. And, what does that mean? That means, like for us, it means, okay, if we're not moving the disc by stall 4 and maybe we turn it over, like, all right, well, we know we're going to get it back. Like that is fully in our control. We know we can play it good enough defense to get it back. Or we know that, Hallie Dunham is going to do what Hallie does, and she's going to throw 1 or 2 sweet throws, and there's not much we can do about that, but we can take everybody else out of the game by shutting them down. So I think those little tiny process goals come through with your key results, which then lead into your objectives, which then lead in, hopefully, to your mission statement or identity statement. And I think full on, like, your team has to be realistic with their mission statement, but I think at the same time, maybe they're not, but maybe your objectives still reach that, right? Like we knew coming in the season, we were going to have a great team, but if we didn't organize our thoughts or how we were going to do that, there was no way we had any capability of like making nationals at all, yet alone finals. So yeah, I think just continuing those little process goals or key results, that's kind of how we checked in and made sure we were still focusing on reaching our bigger goal.
Sam.
It sounds like getting the player buy-in is like a really fundamental step in the process. What does that look like like practically? Was there like a in-person meeting where everybody voted, and was it an eyes closed vote? Was there an actual contract kind of signing? Was there a individual one-on-one conversations that had to happen between players and coaches? I was just curious how you handled kind of, because it's easy enough, I think, for people to sit in a circle and go kind of like, yeah, sure, that sounds good. But how did you ensure that there was actually a real commitment?
Yeah. So before the season even starts, so we have two teams. We have our traveling team, Element, and then our local team, Big Bang. And we have a full team meeting to talk about expectations as a club, as Washington Ultimate. And those are expectations that we set as a group. And then we break off into each team meeting as themselves. And, a lot of these expectations, and coaches, like, we rarely talk at these meetings. It's mostly just to listen so that we know what the team has decided. They did it last year without us in the room, and it was hard to catch up and understand what they decided. So I highly suggest, if you're going to set team expectations, to be in the room and just be a fly on the wall. But basically from that, we kind of, we gathered what the team expectations were of each other. And so there was a meeting before this even started, but those were basically just, hey, let's throw for an hour outside of practice a week, or let's be on time. Like, they were very like structured expectations versus like play, if that makes sense. And so this buy-in came from, like, they set their own expectations of themselves. And then we didn't set these goals probably until after winter break. So right around like early January, before our first tournament. And during winter, we set expectations for them for workouts and whatnot. So there was already some talk of kind of what we expected of them. And they had about a month of practices before we split off to break. And so a lot of these things, like a lot of our key results, like moving the disc by stall forward, like those were things we were already implementing at practice without really telling them why. I mean, obviously there are reasons why, but we tried to do things that we found that our team would be successful at or would thrive in first. And then we took kind of that month of practice that we had and then talked as coaches and said, hey, when we're successful, this is what it looks like at practice, And so that's kind of where it came from. And so it wasn't telling the team to do something different. It wasn't telling them to like come up with something entirely new that wasn't us. It was already what we saw and what we had and what we have that led into these ideas of what our key results were going to be. And so like it kind of created that automatic buy-in of, we're not asking you to change who you are or what you're doing. We're asking you to like really thrive and really like take what that means, to do what we're asking you, because you were already doing it, but now we're just really focusing in on it because that's what we found to be successful versus all these things that maybe were successful one or twice, but weren't. So I think the team really just was like, oh yeah, we are better when we, are creative with our throws, or, oh yeah, we have handlers that can go cut, like, oh, this makes sense. So I think it felt natural, honestly, setting these key results because we had already seen what success looked like. We just were able to put it out there in words. So I think just don't do it too early. I think see what works for your team and kind of build it out in ways that you found as a coach or captains, like get their feedback too of, hey, when you're on the field, what does success feel like? Like, are there people that you're gelling with and why? Like maybe it's creative throwing, maybe they're really structured. So let's embody those things and really like use them to our advantage so that we don't have to recreate the wheel. It's already what we have. It's just, making people aware that what they're doing is right.
Yeah, Darren.
Thanks. Kostic, I don't know. I watched UW play a little. I saw your game against Northeastern, and your team looked so sharp and so smart with the Frisbee. So I'm not sure what was happening in that game in particular, but it was really impressive down in Santa Barbara. It was really nice. I wanted to talk about or ask a question about the big goal, which you kind of threw in a few things, an identity statement, a mission, and a goal. And to me, when I think of identity statement versus mission versus goal, those are all kind of different things. And I was curious, did all of that just boil down to Monday of Nationals, or was there something about the identity that the team had to describe, and then the goal was Monday Nationals? I think that some of our players are reluctant to set simply a competitive goal for the season, because they want the season to be more than just that. And so when you created this identity statement, it was really interesting because that would be language that wouldn't necessarily describe what we're going to do, but more how we're going to do it. So I was wondering if you could take apart the big goal, identity statement, mission, goal statement, and what does that really entail? And just share your process on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think our identity statement kind of, I challenged the captains to put this at their team bonding. And I said, come up with like 3 things, like an identity statement, right? The 3 things that you can identify this team by that are playing into that factor of making it to Monday at Nationals. So I mean, I can pull it up, but I think one of them was as like silly as, let's be weird. Like that is fully Element. That is our team. Like, and that's going to help us be successful. And is like, what does be weird mean, right? Like it's not a measurable goal, but it is an identity statement. Like for us being weird, like us having dance parties when we're feeling frustrated, or, you know, joking about TikToks being like sponsoring us, like those are things that, are part of us that make us who we are. So in that regard, like that's where I'm combining the identity statement and the mission. The mission is like making Monday of Nationals. The identity statement is kind of a forward into that. So the sentence was something like, you know, this Element team, by being weird, by the other 2 things that they've chosen on the top of my head, I can't remember, but will lead us into our best position to make finals of Nationals. So it's kind of a combination of, the mission statement with identity of, these are the things we have identified that are our biggest, like, things that make us love Frisbee, right? And it's something like be weird. Like that to me is not a scary goal. It's just part of who we are. And for us to be successful, that means we're being weird. And that's okay because that's who we are. It's not forced. I think a lot of people, when they make identity statements, they're kind of goals in themselves. But I think your identity statement should be very, like, look deep down. And like the core of UW this year was weird. And like, that's what kept us laughing and playing loose. And when we lost that, like, it showed. And I think playing Northeastern, like we had a little bit of vengeance out from last year Nationals, and that also fired us up. But like playing weird, like showing teams that we can have fun while playing really well is like, that pumps us up. So that's part of our identity statement. And we felt like by us doing that, like there's nobody that could stop us. And that's why they set their goal as making finals and Nationals. So I think, it's a combo, but I think you just have to be really, like, identify what really matters for your team. And it can be as silly as be weird, but I think just, and it should be something. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I was going to say, would it be accurate to say that your mission came first? And then once you have that, then you would say, what are the 3 things that we could identify this team by that would help us deliver that? So it was mission first, identity statement second, and then that together is the top of your diagram.
You got it. That's exactly it. Yeah, it was kind of, Yep. The captains decided that's what they wanted, and we challenged them to come up with what that would look like for our team.
And Kostic, you would do this for your YCC team and your high school team as well? It's...
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, well, this year was weird for high school too, because we had 2 teams combine into one team. So I think it's kind of plays into college a little bit of, you know, in the fall you have returners and you have rookies coming in. So it fits beautifully, honestly. But yeah, I think that's one thing in my coaching style is, and not saying maybe you don't, but I'm just saying for me, I always like put my kids, especially high schoolers, like I treat them as adults and assume that they can accept this responsibility, because I think at this stage in their life, they want to be treated as adults, you know, in a way. So I think I just kind of do whatever I would do with Element, like structure wise, like goal setting. I would totally do this with my high schoolers because I think they can do it. And it might look different. Their goals might be, you know, way less intense, or maybe not.
Well, yeah. No,
but
that's what I was referring to. So I should have just come out and said it. But you can still do it on a lesser level.
Absolutely.
I get it. That's a good call.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I think more so in high school, I involve the full team, not just the captains, because I think it can get a little weird with captains in high school with some, high school drama. I coach girls mostly, so I know, girls have it out for each other. If they're not captain, they're like, well, why am I not captain? So I think sometimes I think that's a culture setting thing that any team might have to work through. But I think even more, I try to involve everybody in the room. And I play a little bit of a bigger role in setting expectations for the high schoolers than I do in college. Like we basically just sit back and don't say anything in the college room. But I think in high school, I try to proctor and like kind of get more out of them in a way of like setting my own expectations. Like just, and I think high school is a little bit different too. This is sometimes people's first experience into ultimate. So they might not know how to set their own expectations. But yeah, so I think it looks a little different, but I think overall you can totally do it.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads into my question a little bit. I don't know quite often, like at the college level, you'll have people who are coming in, they have lots of experience playing ultimate, and then you're recruiting and you might get some incoming first years who've never played before. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how you would build something like this. Like what kind of key results would you look for in a situation like that? Like Washington has 4 U20 Worlds players on it right now or something like that. Mm-hmm. I think
a few of them.
Yeah. And then but you must have some people who don't have that level of experience too. So as you're building those smaller little key results, like like throwing on stall 4, throwing it all might be difficult for some of your players, let alone throwing at stall 4. But maybe, like I that might not be the case on UW, but it's certainly the case on.
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. We have a couple, this is going to sound silly, but we have like 3 or 4 people who have, well, I know for sure 2 people who have never played before they step foot on UW campus. And yeah, they're compared to somebody like Steph or Alex who have been, or Abby, who's played, U24 even, like it's going to look very different for somebody like a rookie who's never played before to throw at stall 4 than say Abby. But I think what you do is if you set that as your norm, as your expectation, then honestly, like ignorance is bliss. Like sometimes these players don't know any different. It's like we have honestly, and it shows. Like this girl, Amber, she's never played before. She comes from a volleyball background, which honestly, I haven't coached many volleyball players. Like it's funny how well she adapted in. And I think she just was thrown into the deep end and given these like expectations of how to succeed. And luckily she's somebody who was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do my best to get in and succeed. But a lot of it too is just embracing that she's going to make mistakes, probably more mistakes than Abby, and just like admiring her for trying. And I think and this is coming from PCA too, but like for me as a coach, like you have to accept that they're going to make mistakes, but highlight what they're doing well so that it's not just them feeling constantly defeated and not reaching these goals or little process goals or key results. But then I think like, yeah, so Amber and we do sideline reset drills because, that can be the scariest spot for any player to have the disc, let alone somebody who hasn't played. And it's a drill where she's going to go 6 reps and she's always going to end on a positive note of being successful and throwing by stall 5, right? So like setting drills up that play into your key results that will make people feel more confident and letting them know that, yeah, you're going to make mistakes. Like nobody's perfect and I'm okay with you making mistakes. Like just keep trying. I think puts it in a framework of I'm not afraid. And I think this is a lot of what happened a few years ago with UW with a different coach and coaching style, and just is sometimes people felt afraid to make mistakes because that meant their play time was axed. Right. And so we really embrace like, you're going to make mistakes. Please do it because that's the only way we're going to be able to help you learn. And that's the only time you're going to take those risks, right? If you're afraid to make mistakes, then yeah, we won't have people throwing before stall 4 because they'll be so afraid to throw the disc because they're so afraid to mess up. But yeah, I think you build in drills at practice that, especially the challenging ones, like throwing before stall 4, playing mini, right? Like something along those lines where they're going to feel the pressure, but then see results. And they might mess up a ton, but maybe 3 practices later, they're in it. And then at a game, it's not so scary. So yeah, we try to do that a lot of basing our practices around these key results and objectives so that when we go into a tournament, it's nothing they haven't seen or heard before or done before.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sam.
So you talked about how the process might look in like a college setting with, you know, a whole fall season, and then you have like your off season in the winter, and then you can kind of work around that. Our youth club season, at least in Pittsburgh, really doesn't start up until late May, early June, and then we're at YCC's the first weekend of August. So,
Totally.
like, how would you maybe think about reframing it all to kind of like, if you've got to squish the entire process into a month and a half, what might that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, and have a little bit of experience with that kind of coaching YCCs, or even, you know, just having a shorter season. And I think you can keep the same format. I think maybe it's just fewer key results so that you can really like hone in and focus on things. But I think like from doing tryouts, and now I know the season's even weirder, but I think a lot of this buy-in for YCC comes in at tryouts. And so we'd always leave like tryouts or maybe the first couple of practices with note cards and have the kids write down, you know, their name. Obviously, please do this because I've done this once without their name, to try to just make it anonymous and try to make kids feel safe and like they don't have to show, you know, their goals or what they think their weaknesses are. Put their name on it because that's the way you're going to be able to help give them feedback. But on a side note, anyways, so I think having these checkout cards of, hey, you know, YCC's in 6 weeks. What do you think our team goal should be, you know, 6 weeks from now? Or what do you think our goal should be at national, or sorry, Western, or YCC, a YCC. And then what you do is compile those note cards and see what the like common responses are. And that can be some of your goal setting. And maybe they're so far off, but I imagine that if you're taking a team to YCC, a lot of their goals are going to be very similar. And that's one way to start it. And I think that's a way to get buy-in from the start and say, hey, these are the goals that you had from you know, yourselves and also of each other. I think that's a great way to just, make it simple and easy for you as a coach. And also it's a way to slide in like, hey, what do you want to work on this summer? Or, hey, what do you think your biggest strength is? Like, what's your superpower? What can you bring to this team? And we also have done captain voting that way, or spirit captain voting that way. But I think sometimes with those shorter seasons, it's just about implementing ways to get players to, like, all players. And this is great too, because sometimes you just, you know, when you ask people what their goals are, you get one or two of the same people responding. But when you do this note card version or a checkout ticket, like, it just helps you get everybody's feedback. And so that's one way I would do it, and have done it and found success. And I think YCC season is super short, but I think, you know, I mean, you know, as a coach, it's one of the most meaningful experiences of these kids' lives. And I think that's one way you do it, is just, you know, they're all stars in their own way. So just making sure that they each feel heard through note cards has been really successful. And just reminding them, like, we have a Slack. And so we'll send out a picture of our OKRs before every tournament. And maybe that looks different. Maybe for YCC, you know, you're sending it out every week and saying, hey, this week we're focusing on this objective and these key results to help us to our bigger goal. So that's probably something I would do with a shorter season, just to emphasize that our goals and our key results matter, and it just might look different.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else have anything they want to add?
I came in late, but some of what you were saying there, Amanda, about the not being afraid to make mistakes. We had a Chinese teacher here who used to always say to our Chinese students, you have to compete to make mistakes. That's the only way that you're going to improve. Mm-hmm. And if everybody's competing to make mistakes, then you individually get better at this thing that you're doing, in that case, Chinese. And then everybody gets better at sort of taking risks and helping each other learn from their mistakes. So that I was reminded of that when you were talking about that, creating a kind of a no fear atmosphere. And then the other thing that I always say to my kids in practice along those lines is just I'm never going to get angry at you for an execution error. What's going to be frustrating for me and your teammates is if there's a sort of a mental error about just, you know, always picking up the disc and hucking it, or not looking for the dot,
Choices.
Yeah, the choices that, that's what we're going to work on together is to avoid those frustrations. But especially for high school kids, if it's a windy, wet day and they turf the disc, then okay. And after the third time, if they keep on picking up the disc, then that's when we have a conversation about like, hey, maybe today's not your day. Why don't you take your defender out of the picture and let somebody else, have a try. But
definitely. And I think, yeah, that's awesome. I think one thing that we do to make that no fear space is reward, and this is something PCA terms, but been doing this, is rewarding unsuccessful effort. So it might look like throwing a forehand. I mean, we all probably were there, and forehands come more naturally to some than others, but I guarantee we all struggled with it. Is like, if you never throw the forehand, it's never going to get better. So I think just highlighting unsuccessful effort, like, you can see maybe their edge was crazy aggressive one day, and I never think that's a bad thing anyways, but maybe they're working on really flattening it out. And I think, the more you can see the angle go from here to here with the disc, like, reward that, like, highlight that they're doing something right. And I think, yeah, that mistake-free, like, worry zone, I think will disappear. And as a team, we really highlight each other's success, so that we're competing with each other to get better, but we're never competing against each other in a way that's negative. Like, I want Amber to be just as successful as Abby, because if both of them are successful, then our team will be better, right? But if we only lean on Abby and we don't focus on the Ambers of the world, then that's not going to be a successful team. And what if Abby, hopefully not, what if Abby can't play in a tournament? Well, we have to rely on each other. So I think, yeah, just really focus on unsuccessful but solid effort and just each other's little successes. And that'll just lead into your team identity, your mission, your objectives, and your key results.
Kostic, do you want to talk a little bit? You keep talking about PCA. I'm not sure everybody knows what Positive Coaching Alliance is. Do you mind?
Yeah, no worries. And Jude, you have a talk tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. So PCA, or Positive Coaching Alliance, little background, national nonprofit that was started up in about 20 years ago. And our goal, I work for them, but our goal is to take youth sports and totally change the culture into one that's positive, but also competitive. And we do that by teaching, coaches, parents, athletes, and also administrators like board members or athletic directors, tools and tips of how to better create that youth culture that really embodies like making mistakes, but like growing from them, right? Or just, it turns basically any culture into one that can be negative and awful, because I'm sure we've had coaches that are yellers, which some people really, work with yellers, but yeah, we just try to teach people tips and tricks of how to create that positive youth culture scene, so that, they can go on and either come back to coach, but really the biggest goal is creating and teaching life lessons through sports. And so that's kind of our main focus. And then we do that through workshops. And so tomorrow at 10 a.m., Just Northwest is having PCA do a Zoom workshop that I hope you all join to learn more tricks like this. But yeah, join. It's at 10 a.m. But yeah, hope you all check it out, because I think it's a great resource to just up your coaching game, especially your like mental toughness side. It's not going to be strategy X's and O's, but it's really going to be how to help your kids be more successful and feel more confident, so that they keep coming back.
Yeah, I've always I think that Ultimate can sometimes give itself it's gonna sound really bad, too much credit. And there's around some of that positive culture stuff. It doesn't, I learned a lot of toxic sports behavior playing other sports growing up. And I brought that initially to my experience playing and coaching. And Ultimate was awesome, and I knew why I was drawn to it immediately. I wasn't able to throw off the other stuff that I had learned playing other sports and being coached by bad coaches and all of that stuff. So I think, while it could seem a little bit redundant sometimes to like look as Ultimate folks to look at PCA and be like, oh, we already have this. We have Spirit of the Game. every time I do a PCA workshop, I alter some part of my coaching strategy, my approach to coaching a little bit, and getting closer and closer to the kind of coach I want to be. And thanks in large part to the PCA stuff. So yeah, we're not immune to all of that, all of those things that about sports that can be really negative and create negative experiences for kids. So absolutely encourage you to check that out tomorrow at 10.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our biggest thing is turning like athletes into competitors, and competitors, are the ones that try hard and really try to grow. And that's our biggest thing on the athlete side. So if you're looking, especially for YCC coaches, I think this is, in high school, is a great opportunity for you, is really focusing in on what's going to take my, it might be somebody really athletic, or maybe it's somebody totally new, and it's just going to make them better, like, people too, which I think is really important. And I don't know, that's the reason why I coach, is to have hopefully these kids come back and coach so I can stop. But yeah, I think definitely check it out if you're interested. It's free, so why not? But I think it's an awesome resource.
Kostic, is there a defining piece of literature or some place that you can direct folks to learn more about? I know the business side of it, but just the structure of building an OCR, or OKR thing.
Yeah, funny enough, there's actually a book written about it. It's called Measure What Matters. And I'm not a reader by any means, but books like this that give me concrete things to do or work on work really well for how I think. But I highly suggest checking it out. It's Measure What Matters by John Doerr. And I think, it's just kind of reinforces why they're important, and kind of gives you a little bit more of the background of where they started and how they've changed, and how companies like Google, who's, billion-dollar company, has one of the most, the highest I want to work for your company rating, right? So I think it shows and it proves that doing something like this can even work for the biggest companies, biggest teams. So highly suggest reading it. Hopefully your library can still do ebooks at this point.
I put a link to their website in the
chat. Sweet.
Oh, good. Hey, Costa, can I ask, did your team, any of your teams, any level, high school, YCCs, college, it happened to me last year, and I wasn't for it, but once they did it, it ended up benefiting me. But the girls my U20 girls wanted to put a spreadsheet together that, you only logged in if you wanted to. And by the end, I think everyone had, and then there were columns of what they work best with, what, when they make a mistake, what do they, do they, some want to get yelled at, some just don't want to even have the coach acknowledge it. Some want, then the next column would be, when we lose a point, are we going to rush the field like everybody does, or are we going to not? Or, I'm trying to think of what, I tried to bring it up, but I can't remember what it was called. But do your teams do that, or is that a good tool, or have you done it, and did it work well? Was it a good tool for your team?
Yeah, funny enough. So I haven't ever done it on a spreadsheet. I know, I played on Underground, and we had a personality quiz spreadsheet, and one of our teammates just loved them, so we all took them. So that was one way we did that. But the way that I've done it in the past, and this is from Caitlin, who used to play on Riot, and just very into the social, emotional, mental side of the game. Yeah. And she actually had us all do this at practice, and basically line us, or have us in a blob, and then ask a question of, whatever questions you're asking, she would ask them in person. And one of them was, after you make a mistake, do you need a lot of team support, or do you need to just be by yourself? And we'd line up in a line of a spectrum from, the extremes of, yes, I need a ton of support, to no, I don't. And we did this so that you could look around and see where each other fall on that line. Okay. That honestly was more, I think I'm a visual learner. So I think for me, it was really empowering to see I'm not alone in my self-sulk kind of, I need to be by myself for a second. And then wow, I didn't know that these three people really need the team to pick them up. So I know these are the people that I can go to when I'm feeling down, and these are the people I probably will stay away from, but that I can contribute to them if they just made a mistake,
Yeah.
you know, or it's also, we did one for cheers. Like, are you the kind of person that needs to get hyped before a game? Or are you kind of the silent, like headphones on, like game face? Because getting pumped might look totally different to people. And I think it's important to just, I don't know, see. And it's also a fun exercise to just like get up and move around.
Yeah.
But I highly suggest doing it in person and having them line up. And you can do things, and we've made teams from it before. So you can say, all right, we're splitting like the intense people, you know, the intense, like focused, quiet type over here versus the loud. Okay, y'all are on a team and y'all are going to play each other. And, you know, just making it, I know for Element, we always get feedback of, hey, let's mix up the lines more. And that's sometimes a great organic way to do that. And you kind of like embody the, like, yeah, we're the silent type and we're going to, you know, and the other team's like throwing cheers down your throat. But yeah, I think I love that. I think that's an awesome way to get the kids or players to know each other. I think that's not a bad idea to do right now, honestly, if you're looking for things to do. Not in person, obviously, but no, I love that. Yeah, definitely see value in it for sure. And it helps you as a coach to know how to give feedback or who to talk to in certain situations too. So yeah, you're totally right. You might have kids that hate hearing anything after a mistake, and you might have kids that are like, oh gosh, what can I do to do better?
Yeah.
So really empowering.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, some good tools, Kostic. Yeah, there's some good.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know where we. I look forward to tomorrow's actually.
A quick variation on that is getting kids together in small cohorts and having them do those same things. Brian Jones, when he was at UConn as the coach, came and ran a clinic here, and he said that's what he did with the UConn players is he had them talk about how do you want to be talked about, what kind of direction do you want from the sideline, and that kind of thing. So I like that. I like that sort of spectrum, right, that you described with Riot. That's pretty cool. So you can see the whole team, and maybe as a coach you can make a note. That's a great.
Yeah, it's been really cool, and you can totally make it fun. Like we've done things of, I hate Cheetos versus I love Cheetos. Like you can make it literally anything that doesn't matter, but it's just a fun tool to use, or break up the seriousness of it. Okay. Or you can start, you know, a little fun to then make it more serious, whatever kids are comfortable with, but you know.
Awesome. I want to be respectful. I think we said this was going to be an hour-long session, so we're coming toward the end of it. So last chance if anybody has any questions. Also, like if being a part of this has inspired you and you want to share something that you've done, some thinking, like there's lots of time. We would love to add you to our schedule and you can share the work that you've done. Strat, I want to talk to you about an idea about it's sort of an AMA thing that we should do. So, but we have a meeting in like an hour, so we'll talk then. But yeah, if anybody on the call has something they want to share, I mean, I have a 15-minute one of these scheduled later, like next week. So it doesn't have to be. It's, you know, we have Ella Hansen's going to come and teach us how to teach people how to pull, which is
sweet,
so dope. Like it can be anything. It doesn't have to be like planning a whole season. It can be teaching one skill or one thing you really love about being an ultimate coach. So hit me up at youthdirector@discnw.org. Let me know.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate talking about what's worked for me, but happy to continue this conversation too, like email, Twitter, phone, whatever. You know, talking to people is nice. So feel free to reach out whenever. Everybody's staying engaged with their teams if you can.
And check out the schedule. Casey, who's on here, he's got one coming up I'm excited about.
Yeah, Casey.
Yeah. So I'll see you here hopefully tomorrow. If not, we got a couple more this week.
Right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Kostic.
Sweet. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, of course. Happy to chat.
Stay safe.
Do it outside for the bird noises too. It really reminded me of the outdoors.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. You know, you can thank the crappy Wi-Fi inside for that. And the rare Seattle sunshine. I'm taking it in.
All right.
Have a great day. Thanks.
Yeah, you too, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Dude, you got 30 seconds?
Sure.
I would love to hear